Hello viewers, this is Riyaz Ajiz and the program is Journalist Insight. Today with me Lars Werge. He is the president of Danish Journalists Union. So I'd like to talk to him about the position and the workings of this union. Thank you very much, Mr. Lars. You gave us time. First of all, I'd like to know what is the aim and object of your union?
Well, we have two general purposes. One is to to maintain and to broaden the freedom of speech and freedom of the press in Denmark, and the other one is to secure and to get better payment and better conditions for our members when they are working as journalists, as photographers. So that is the two main purposes.
What kind of a struggle you have to do in your country for the freedom of press and freedom of expressions?
Well, I would say it's the same struggle that goes on in many countries in Europe these days in this period, because government and legislation is trying to narrow the freedom of the press. They will cut down on the public service media. They will try to put more pressure on the journalists and on the media compared to what we have seen for many years.
So government of every country is doing the same work as being done in your country. It is nothing new. Can I ask what kind of pressures government put on the owners of the newspapers or the media owners?
In Denmark, we just last month there was a new law is coming on the media in Denmark, and it will cut down the public service media with 20% over the next 5 years. Over the next 5 years. And it will also change the way that the media will be supported from the government. In Denmark, it is so that all the media is supported financially due to some legislation and due to traditions. But now the government is changing this over the next years. So we have seen a lot of things coming up, and a lot of politicians and a lot of parties trying to cut down on the media in Denmark, and we fought against it, but we must say that our fight has been not so successful. So we will see over the next years that some of our colleagues will be sacked, will be out of job, because the media houses, public service media, the newspapers where they work will undergo some changes due to this new law that has been settled.
Do you think on this point opposition and the government is on the same page?
Sorry, that this
the reduction of the media, as you said, the private media, they are going to reduce the private media. On this point, on this agenda, the government and the opposition are on the same page.
No. This law, this agreement, political agreement, was made with the narrowest majority that is possible in the Danish government, in the Danish parliament. Sorry. It was only the government and its supporting party, and they have 1 or 2 mandates more than the half. So there was a big opposition against this new agreement, but there was a very narrow majority on the side of it.
So do you think some politicians of the party are in your favor and they will support you when the need arises?
Well, the challenge here is that this deal is made for the next 5 years, so it will be quite difficult, I think, to reopen it after the next election. There will be an election in Denmark to the parliament in a year's before in the next year we will have an election to the parliament, but it's difficult to say that this will lead to a new government. It's not. It's very difficult to say which way the next election will go. And if there is a new government, it is not a certain thing that they will change this agreement on the media.
Okay, how many journalists you have in Denmark, and how many associations are joined with you?
Well, we are the association, or we are the union that is organizing journalists and other people working in the media and also with communication. We have 18,000 members in our union, and I would say 7,000 or 8,000 of them are working as journalists.
Rest of them what are they doing?
The rest of them are working, either they are studying. A lot of our members are students who are taking the education, who is taking...
Okay, what is the criteria of membership in your union? You give membership to students as well?
If you are studying journalism, if you are studying photojournalism, if you study on certain educations where you can learn communications, you can be member with our union, and we therefore have around 1/5 or 1/6 of our members are students.
How many foreigners are your members if they are studying in your country?
The number of foreigners, I'm not sure about it. I don't have the exact number, but it's not so many.
It's not so many, but you allow them to get membership if they are studying media.
Yeah, if they study media in Denmark, they can be members with our union.
Doesn't matter whether they are Danish citizen or not.
Not to become a member of the union. If you qualify for being a member, then you can be a member even if you are not a Danish citizen. If you work in Denmark, if you have the skills or if you have the education, then you can be a member of our union.
So, do you allow them to work with you, and what is the standard of payment in your country to journalists?
Journalists in Denmark earn, well, we have the Danish kroner, but I will try to find out what it is in euros. In Denmark, a journalist will earn around 4,500 euros per month. That is what is the common salary around that. 4,500 euros.
It is easy to live with this salary. Is it easy to live with this salary? It's okay, or it's very low?
No, it's okay. It's quite a good salary. Of course, some of our members earn more, and some of them earn a lot less. But if you take the whole group of members and divide it, then the average will be around 4,500 euros. So that's quite a good salary in Denmark, but it's not very high, but it's not very low.
You said around 7,000 journalists are working in Denmark. How many of them you think after the implementation of that law, which you were talking about, they will thrown out?
Well, it's very difficult to say because we haven't seen the plans for the public service media, for instance. What will they actually do? How will they work with this new law? But when we see, I reckon there will be some hundreds that will come out of job one way or another over the next years.
How many of them will be thrown out of the jobs? You don't have any idea of that, exact idea?
Well, I would say some hundreds will get some hundreds.
What will your union do if this happens?
Well, we will try to help them find other jobs. We will try to help them get some uh, education, some courses, make them perhaps see other possibilities. Some of them will perhaps have been working with the media house uh, that they will be. They have been working there, for instance, for 10, 15, 20 years. So perhaps they need to have their eyes opened, so to say, to see what other possibilities are there when I cannot work for.
Do not go for any protest if such type of things or such type of
Oh yeah, but
laws implemented in your countries?
we already protested. We already tried to get our words heard by the politicians. And of course, when the plans will be materialized over the next months, then we will see some protests. Of course, we will. But we cannot say right now if we want to protest. But it will be one of the possibilities is a protest. Yes.
What are the ways of your protest? Is it very peaceful, or sitting on a side, or making some noises in the country?
Well, some protests will be that we have seen over the years that when things like this happen, the the members working in this certain media house, they will go on strike. We also protest by doing some chronics, doing debates in the public area, trying to say that this is not good. So we have, of course, have various ways of protesting. We have various ways of getting our voices heard.
Okay, what does in this situation, in this type of situation, what does the International Federation of Journalists do for you?
Well, at the end of May, I think it was, or in the beginning of June, we were at the meeting in the European Union of Journalists, and there were certain motions that were met with big applaud from the delegates to take a stand against these cuts in the public service media. It also is things that you have seen in other countries, so across Europe, and I reckon also if it was in the IFJ sector, there will be a lot of positive response from the other federations and from the international federation, of course. So we have a lot of backup from the IFJ and from the European Federation.
Can you stop government to do protest, or after your protest, or pressure from IFJ or European Union of Journalists? Is it possible the government can change its mind?
To comment on that protest, or what do you mean?
I mean to say, after your protest, do you think government may become under pressure and they can change their mind?
I think it's very difficult to see that they will. It's not realistic that the government will change its mind on this agenda. It's a liberal, right-wing government in Denmark, and they have one of their key political targets is to cut the public sector and to cut the tax level in Denmark, and they see this as a way of.
I want to know the reason why government is doing this. Is it happening all around the Europe, or is it happening only in Denmark?
No, it's happening more or less vital, or more or less powerful. You see it in certain ways doing this all over Europe, in a lot of countries over Europe. In the Nordic countries, for instance, Finland, Sweden, Norway, they have seen things like this. In Austria, in Switzerland, you see things like this. So there is a lot of debate. You had it in the United Kingdom some 2 years ago, I think it was. There was a lot of debate about the public service sector, and a lot of threats to cut also the BBC and public service media.
Why government is afraid of journalists? Can you explain that?
Yeah, no, I don't really accept that they should be afraid of journalists, because journalists do not have the government or the politicians as enemies. The journalists and the media work to clarify and to be critical observers of what is going on in society, and government and the politicians also need this. But so I don't really see why they find the journalists and the media as enemies, but that seems so.
It seems they think
It looks like that. Yeah.
okay. What is your position at that time when it becomes very difficult to express your feeling? And I want to ask this question: what do you understand by freedom of expression? If your news goes against your country, do you think it comes or lays down under the freedom of expression?
Well, I think, if I understand you correctly, I think freedom of expression is perhaps the most valued and sacred thing in a democratic society. If you do not have freedom of expression, you actually do not have the full democratic society, in my view.
Even if your expression goes against your country or against the interests of your nation, you think it should be given, and if someone comes with that expression and it hurts the country's interest, it doesn't make any difference.
Of course, there will be always, also in Danish law and in other countries, you have laws where you, of course, have to be aware that the national security is not put under threat. But we have rules against this, and rules that in some ways limitate the freedom of expression. But it is our view that we should have as much freedom of expression as possible. In Denmark, we have had a lot of discussions over this over the years, and our view in the Danish Union is that freedom of expression is a key value for democratic society.
One thing more I'd like to know. Today, terrorism is all around the globe. How do you treat when a news comes to you about a terrorist?
Well, the news should be told. I think. I'm not sure what you want me to answer.
I want to know what idea you have about the terrorists, and who think you is a terrorist.
Well, in Denmark over the years we have had different political terrorists, and now it seems like the last things we have seen in Denmark some years ago was more religiously oriented terrorism. But I mean, why should you not tell about terrorists, and what makes them terrorists? What makes this extreme way of expressing yourself? How did they come to this? So, of course, a newspaper, news media houses should, of course, also try to find out what is the up and down on the terrorism.
Okay, do you have extremist or terrorist organization in your country? You think they are having some happens, or they are having some happens here?
As I have been told, yes, there are some environments in Denmark where they will be. They are under the police. What do you say? They are under police investigation. That the police will have an eye on them, because there may be some of these environments where you see radical things going on. So there are some Danish environments where the police is having a very close look at them.
Uh, what do you do when you think this terrorist or this extremist may become harmful for the society? So we must inform the police and give it to the story in the paper or in the media. Do you think the threats are there for a journalist who are putting some sort of news in the paper?
Well, I think the journalists should be journalists. They should not be police officers. And that means that if you have a story about a radical movement that is planning terrorism, well,
Let me clear my question. If you publish
Mhm.
a story against a terrorist or against extremist, do you feel a threat, or do you get a threat from a threat call from these elements?
Yeah, the media houses in Denmark have since 2006 and 7, after the Danish newspaper Jyllandsposten published drawings or cartoons about Muhammad. There have been very, very high security level in the Danish media houses because the media houses were under attack, and there have been planned. There have been plans to attack the media houses in the central of Copenhagen. So therefore, the houses are held under very strict surveillance from the police because they want to secure the news desks.
Do you think such type of cartoons must be published or may be published by the media groups which are harming or hurting uh, billions of people around the globe?
Well, I think that must be up to the editor and the news media to decide this.
Don't you think you don't have any idea this sort of cartoons they are publishing, they are making noises, they are making distortion in the society or around the globe?
Well, my personal opinion, but I don't have a media to publish, so I'm not a publisher.
What is your personal idea? What I'm asking.
Pardon?
I'm asking
Pardon?
your idea, your views. In your views, what
Well,
should happen?
I would, as I told before, I think that the most sacred value in a democratic society is the freedom of expression. So if it's held necessary from the editor of a news media to publish drawings or to publish cartoons or to publish a story that is putting questions upon religion or politics or other things in certain groups, then within the frame of the law, then they can do it, and they can do that. Yeah.
Okay, I again come to your association. What is your
Mhm.
annual budget of your association, and your president of your association when you were elected, and for how long?
Well, I was elected president in 2015, and then I was re-elected 2 years later in 2017. And next year, the period is up again. It's a 2-year period that I am elected for, and there is no limitation around the number of periods. So actually, I can run and rerun if I want to.
For members annual fee, and what is your annual budget, and how do you meet that budget?
Well, the budget is secret.
It's secret.
It's yeah, but the annual fee is just a second. I try to run it into euros. It's around 5,000 Danish kroner. That would be 650 euros per year.
Do you have any
600.
do you have any relaxation for students?
Any?
Any
Yeah, students.
relaxation?
Yeah, students and elder members who are not working anymore, and members who are not earning so much. They get a lower fee.
Uh, One thing is very important, which I'd like to ask you, and would like to know your views on it. Uh, Around the globe, the standard of media or the standard of reporting Do you think it's upgrading or it's going to downward?
I think the standard of reporting is under pressure due to a lot of media houses that have problems by earning enough money because of the media houses. The newspapers are not coming on print anymore. That the commercial income is lowering. There's a lot of things that are pressuring the media houses. So therefore, we have seen in Denmark and also otherwhere that the number of journalists are going down, and therefore, of course, the quality of reporting is a little under pressure. But journalism in itself, I see, has a bright future, but it is perhaps not in the traditional media houses. It may be in other places like blogosphere and online reporting.
What is the standard of investigation reporting in your country?
I think it's a high standard. There's a lot of groups in the media, in the various media houses. There we have specialized groups that will have the freedom to dig into certain aspects, and they report on a very high level, I would say. Yeah.
Do you have any training programs for investigative journalists or journalists working in war zones? Do you have any training programs?
Yeah, we have within the union and in collaboration with the employers. We have programs. We have educational programs that you can go to get better qualifications into investigative journalism or to learn other things.
So you arrange programs, and do you entertain foreign journalists in this program?
It's not the union doing it, but we collaborate with the employers' associations and do it in the frame of our universities. And I think, yes, sometimes they have foreign journalists going into the programs too. Normally, the language would be Danish, but I think there may be one or two of the possibilities that will be with foreign language journalists also.
What do you think? What is the today media has become a very powerful element in any society or any state. Even in the poor countries or the developing countries, media has become a very big power. What do you think? What is the future of media in the developing country?
I hope it's a bright future, but there as well you have problems by earning enough money as a media house. So therefore it will probably face the same difficulties as the other countries, as I mentioned before. I know that, for instance, we in the Danish Union have had some training programs and exchange programs with unions in the Middle East and in the African continent. And I know that also some of the other European federations have similar programs where we try to learn a little from them and they try to learn a little from us regarding this.
One thing is very important, I would like to know more. What do you think? What do you do when you think when a story comes to you about your journalist and he's blackmailing anybody? What do you do then?
Well, I haven't had such a story. I haven't had such a report to me personally.
Don't you think journalists in Denmark may be doing some yellow journalism or doing blackmailing?
No, I'm not aware of it. We haven't had any reports about that.
It never happened in Denmark?
Not to my knowledge. It may have been some cases, but I don't really have them in the forehead.
What are your views are about yellow journalism?
Yellow journalism is What is
Blackmailing.
that?
Blackmailing, making money through journalism, through illegal
Well, I
means.
think
Illegal
I think
means.
there's there's one way to make money out of journalism, and that is to earn your wage by being a journalist. And being a journalist is not to blackmail, of course.
Getting money against when you have got a news, and against that news you're contacting a person if the news goes against him or her,
Mhm.
you ask them to kindly give me this money, I can stop this news. So this is blackmailing or not?
It looks like blackmailing, and that's unethical, and that's not a decent way of doing your journalism. So I would say if you did that, you could not be able to call yourself a journalist.
To serve any agenda of government, is it journalism?
To make comments?
To serve any agenda of the government of or any political party, is it journalism?
No, that's more like a communications officer or something like that to me. And we also organize people who work in a purpose of political party or in the purpose of a commercial institute or whatever. So we don't see that as opposition, but we see it as another way of doing a job than be a journalist.
How do you recognize a person who is apparently a journalist but insidely he is working for intelligence agency?
Oh, I don't know. Uh, if we to my knowledge, it's not a problem. It's not a thing we know in Denmark.
It never happened, and somebody working for intelligence agency and working also with you in the cover of journalist.
Mm. It may have been during the Cold War or whatever, but I'm not. It's not a thing that I see as a thing in Denmark.
As a
Can we
whole,
do two? Can we do 2 more minutes because then I have another thing on my agenda today.
uh, as a whole, what is the position of journalism in the European Union? And after the after the expel of England, oh, do you think it has some bad impressions?
Um, Well, I think, as I said before, I think journalism is under pressure from governments, from politicians, from people who hold power. It's like, yeah, you can look at the president of the United States as a person who is always willing to say that is to blame for everything that is not going his way. And you see the same tendencies also in European media, and in European societies and European countries. So, yeah, journalism is under pressure, but I think we will hold on. We have to hold on.
What effect has made social media on journalism?
Well, at least it has improved the speed. Journalism today is so fast and is so quickly to be told via the social media. So therefore, the speed is very high today, and that also has an effect on journalism. Sometimes you forget to do proper journalism because you have to do quick journalism.
So, because of pressure of social media, you think this is happening?
I think it's not a pressure; it's just the way that we now get our stories out in the world. 25 years ago, it was with the the news in the radio every hour, and it was with the newspaper coming every morning or every afternoon, and that was it. Today, you just spread the news all over the 24 hours of the day and every day of the week. So it's just a much higher pressure, and it's a lot quicker tempo.
It has deprived the quality of journalism.
No, it has not, but it can, of course, be a challenge if you want to do a thing quickly, more than you have to do it good and properly. Sometimes you see there are mistakes making, there are mistakes made, which can seem to be because of the very high tempo of the making of the story.
What is your view?
Breaking news.
What is your view about social media? Should it continue in the same way, or it must be stopped because rumors are more affecting the news?
I think social media is a thing that has come to stay, and it will not go away, even if I, as president of the Danish Union, says it must go away. So I think we have to, and I think when I look at the news picture, the whole picture, I think that our colleagues are learning to use the social media in a good way, to get some information via the social media to use in the journalism. So overall, I think it's just a new way, a new habit should be formed.
The whole world has become a journalist through social media. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of perspective in getting new members.
New members. Will you offer membership of your union to the person who is running social media?
No, I think there should be a little more to it than that.
They are more.
That's good.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Josie. You talked to me and gave me an interview. We'll be in touch in future. Thank you very much.